What happens now with government firmly controlling and monopolising the way money is issued into the economy? The next thing they start to do is to debase. I'm going to use this word here, debase the money itself. What do I mean by debase? Very simply, that means that the government starts to remove the value of the money itself. Let's go all the way back up to here where we said free market money naturally appears within a free market, which intrinsically represents the labour of men and women. In other words, it's the stored wealth of the money of the market itself. As we said, gold has got a very high intrinsic labour component. It's very hard to produce, it's very risky, and it takes a long time to produce in any economy any substantial amount of money itself. But bearing in mind, once that gold is produced and it becomes coins in the marketplace, it has a very high intrinsic value. As I said a moment ago, it takes a very small amount of gold to purchase a large amount of wealth within this. Now money is being controlled by the government start to debase it. What I mean by that is they start to remove the value from the money itself. So this is a pure gold piece of unique gold, and that's 99.9 pure gold. And in many times in the past, we've seen money that will be maybe 90 or 85% pure gold, or could be pure silver. And it's because of the amount of gold contained within that monetary item that truly gives it its value. It's not the appearance of the coin itself, it's not the beautiful artwork of the king or the ruler or the leader of the government. It's not the fact that it's been money for a long time or that coin has been around for a long time that gives it its value. What gives it its pure value is the pure gold and silver contained within the piece of gold itself. But now what we've seen throughout history is that governments start to take these coins that were once 85% pure gold and they start adding cheap metals like tin and zinc and other bits of metal like copper, and so after a period of time the coinage actually becomes maybe 45% pure or maybe even 25% pure. In fact, in the ancient Roman Empire, you'll see that silver coins, the denarii at the time of Jesus, was probably around 75% pure silver in the Roman economy. But 200 years after Jesus' life on planet Earth, the actual silver denarii at that point only had 2% pure silver. So in other words, it had gone from 75% pure silver all the way down to 2%. What does this mean? Is that the actual metal value, which is the stored labour of men's past labour and production, is being reduced every single year. This is in fact inflating the amount of coins in the market itself, where we get this thing called inflation. It's very, very easy to draw this scenario. In fact, let's say that if all we had in an economy were 3 coins and they were 85% pure coins. The government took those 3 coins out of circulation, added some tin to it, and made them now 45% pure. Now suddenly we have 6 coins. The amount of coins that we have in the circulation within the economy are larger, there's more of them, but the actual value has dropped by half. This is a thing called inflation, and this has always happened within this life cycle of money. The government debasement of the money itself. Now for a period of time it's okay. In fact, it's interesting that in many times in past societies and civilizations, inflation, the creation of money that's not backed by labour but in fact producing more money with less intrinsic value behind it, the thing called inflation, in fact, is very, very good for the economy at first. And at first nobody notices, but after a little while, people are starting to observe that the price for everything within this market is going up all the time. Yesterday it took one coin to buy a loaf of bread. Today it takes two. This process of inflation is creeping into the market because the government keeps on issuing coins into the economy. It's the old analogy that we've used many times. The more water you add to paint, the more paint it takes to paint the same wall. When the paint is in its pure form, it will take a lot less of it to paint a wall. But if I keep on adding water and water and water, then that paint becomes very, very thin and very ineffective to do its job, which is to paint the wall. And so it is with money that just keeps on growing, growing and growing. Now, the smart viewer out there would be thinking to themselves, well, why does the government even do this debasement of money and inflate the money in the first instance? It's a great question. You know, we've all heard of counterfeiting, where people will take a plate that we can use to print, for example, United States dollar notes, and if a counterfeiter could set up a printing press in his backyard and just print paper, then he gets to spend that money. And people understand that that process is, of course, one that is highly illegal, and you would go to jail if you were caught counterfeiting United States or Australian currency or any one of the national currencies in the world today. A counterfeiter will go to jail. In fact, in the past times, a counterfeiter would in fact lose his life in many past civilisations and societies. But the reason governments debase the money is because they get to spend it first, just like the person printing notes in their backyard. By the king or the government or the ruler or the Caesar, it doesn't matter who it is, by them debasing the money, they're actually producing more money, which gives them the first chance to spend the money within the economy itself. Basically, it's a trick, and it's a trick to be able to spend money that you've not earned through your own hard labour. And of course, one of the things to understand about government is typically they don't produce anything of value in the economy itself or in the market itself. All they're really there to do is to maintain a legal system of law and order within the economy itself. So we've now got a debased currency which has gone all the way down to maybe 0% of anything in terms of pure value. In fact, let's have a look at this example here today. We started off back up here with free market money, and then we end up today with a piece of paper. Now that piece of paper has got $20 written on it, but in fact it's worth about 1/2 cent of paper and ink and manufacturing to make that note. The true intrinsic value of this $20 note is in fact about 1/2 cent, where in the past it was worth the pure gold content of the gold itself. In fact, if you look at any of these notes here, you'll realise that actually the true value, the intrinsic value of the note itself, is only worth 1/2 cent. In this case, it's called $20. In this case, I'm holding here a $100 trillion note, which is produced by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. In other words, the Central Bank of Zimbabwe has printed the same type of paper with a different colour ink, but the same kind of ink, and instead of putting 20 on there, they've put $100 trillion. And that is really a result of just producing far too much money within the economy itself. In fact, this is a lovely note. This is a 1918 Deutsche Mark from the Reich Republic in Germany in the year 1918-1919. That was a $10,000 note. In 1918, 10,000 Reichmarks was worth a lot of money. Within probably 4 or 5 years from this note being printed, 4 to 5 years after that, by 1923, this same 10,000 Reichmark note was probably not even worth enough to buy a postage stamp to put on an envelope to send a letter to somebody. So that again is inflation in paper. Really, paper is valueless in terms of really truly reflecting any stored value of the production of man or women, or any of the value of the free market itself. So that is the debasement process of money. What happens after that? What is the next step, the sixth step in the life cycle of money itself?